We're beginning the season of Advent, but the public conversation doesn't know very much about Advent. The public conversation is all about Christmas, preparing for Christmas. They don't call it Advent, but it's really a preparation for Christmas. However, in the public conversation, it's all about decorations or gifting or festive things. But the notion of Advent is quite different, and I want to offer you just one thought for Advent. Because if we have many thoughts for Advent, we'll wander all over the place. So let me just pause for a moment and invite you to reflect on one thought for Advent. It's a time of waiting. We're waiting for the Lord. And in the Gospel of Luke there, chapter 2, where we have the narrative about the birth of Jesus, the shepherds in the fields, the angels appear to them. Glory to God on the highest, and peace on earth to those of good will. When we're disposed, we're going to inherit the peace of Christ. Let me offer one thought about that. It has to do with listening. We are a divided people. There's a tension in the air. There's a sense of animosity even at times, even with those who are very close to us. When families gather these days, we're wondering if we should talk about politics or certainly not about politics. Politics creates a problem, and the problem is listening. See, we don't listen to learn. We listen to respond. And when you have a question or you have an opinion, when you're halfway through your question or your opinion, I already have my response. And it's not just listening with the mind, it's listening with the whole person. That would be an Advent thought, to listen with the whole person. Let me tell you a story about this. When I came to Holy Family 36 years ago, 37 this year, and we had a very small staff. We had 3 people on the staff. We had one phone line, but a very bonded parish, very tight, very closely knit, faith-filled, generous people. It was a small parish in those days. And since we didn't have all the blessings of our incredible staff today, I was the wedding coordinator. I would do the rehearsals and fill in the book and get the paperwork for weddings. So one day a couple came in to see me, and they sat in my little office in the old rectory, and they were looking for a date to get married. So I got the big book out and looked up the date, and then I was filling in details, and I said, well, your name is John, yes, and okay, John, where do you live? And he gave me his address. Then there was Mary, and I said, oh, Mary, what's your name and where? The same address. Well, in these days, that may not be so unusual, but 36 years ago, it was unusual. It was unusual for everybody and for me. So at that time, my protocol was I would just talk with them for a minute or two. So I put the book down. You know, when the priest puts the book down, something very solemn is about to happen. So I put the big book down, and I said, I'm going to talk to you for just a minute or two and tell you what I think Jesus Christ asks of you. You're preparing to get married in the church. And I spoke very kindly and said, you should think about this, about how you prepare. Living together may not be the way of Jesus Christ. Well, They listened respectfully for a few moments, and then that young woman looked at me and she said, Monsignor, you don't understand, she said. My parents went through such a painful, hostile, acrimonious divorce. I am so fearful of getting married. I had to live with him to find out if he was the right man. Telling me this with great emotion, with tears in her eyes. And of course, in response, my left brain, my canonical brain, kicked in and said, well, are you sure he is the man now? And she said, I am. And then I said, well, the reason for living together isn't there anymore. Well, that was clever. But it wasn't listening. They didn't contest me. And they left, and I got a note the next day, cancelled the wedding. And I never saw them again. And I wondered to myself, did I make a mistake? And I think I did. Now, people will interpret this differently, but my interpretation was, I never felt her pain. I never felt her fear, her anxiety. I never felt the wound which she carried from her parents' divorce. I just listened with my mind. I didn't listen with my heart. I didn't listen with my whole person. And I said, that was a major mistake I made. And since then, anyone who comes to see me and sits in my office to talk to me about their life or something, I first of all pause and I ask myself, what language are they speaking? The language of the heart or the language of the mind? I have to listen with my whole person. I think that's what's missing today. We're full of opinions, and our opinions are very strong and sometimes very judgmental. We don't listen to the anxiety of the other person, the fears the other person is expressing in language, the sense of disappointment, or the sense of triumph. And as we prepare for the coming of the Lord, a season of peace, of reconciliation, just one thing. Listen with the whole person. Feel, sense, with compassion, with openness, and with a certain courage, and especially with faith. Listen to yourself. Sometimes it's hard to listen to ourselves. You listen to yourself and say, wow, how could I have said this? And why didn't I do this? And maybe I should second guess myself. Listen to those who have a conversation with you, especially those who differ, radically maybe, differ with you. Listen with the whole person, with generosity, with openness, and with compassion. And perhaps with this dynamic of listening, we might journey through Advent, expecting the coming of the Lord, truly a season of peace.